What is up, everybody? I'm Matt Organista with Dreamcast Media Group, and I'm going to walk you through how to set up 3 talkback channels and 1 mix minus channel using the Rodecaster Pro 2. Okay, so I know how it goes when you're looking for stuff on YouTube and other parts of the internet. You come across a video like this, haven't gotten into how to set it up yet. I'm going to do that at the end. I need to give you the reasons for why I'm doing what I'm doing and then all the equipment that's involved. So if you just want to see how to set up the back channels, fast forward to the end of this and you'll see how I program the buttons and do everything here. But for those that want to see the inner workings of how I set this up from start to finish and the reasons why and the equipment that I'm using, we're going to get into that right now. So first of all, I want to go through all the equipment that I have. I have 2 Audio-Technica headsets. I got a nice handheld mic here. And then off screen, I have a studio monitor. It's a speaker. And that studio monitor is coming out of the headset for channel 1, which is associated with this mic input over here on the green. The other 2 channels, so channel 1 is for this mic, and this is for our producers, and the studio monitor is for our production team, so our switcher, our director, and our producer. And we're pulling the audio from the headphones out and sending it to the monitor. So next is channel 2, which is commentator 1. And then channel 3 is commentator 2. Now, I've tried to go through several ways to set up tons of different back channels, and there are some limitations. And one of those limitations is that channel 1 has to be associated with all back channels. That's not in the software yet for the Rodecaster Pro 2. Maybe that's coming one day. But what I've tried to do is I tried to set up individual talkback channels between the commentators, and that didn't work because channel 1 has to be associated with all back channels. So how I have configured this is these 2 buttons here, these 2 green buttons. It's really cool. You can add color to the buttons however you want. I've decided to go green. So these 2 buttons do exactly the same thing. And this is what's called a momentary button. There's 2 types of buttons. I'll get into that in a second, how to set that up with latching and momentary. You can see momentary, when you push it down, it creates the back channel between channel 1, 2, and 3. When you let go, it takes the back channel off. And these 2 are the same. And the reason why they're the same is that I've divided this in half. So this is commentator 1's buttons, and this is commentator 2's buttons, and this stays down on the floor at the table with our commentators. So those are the 2 buttons. Down here, these are specific buttons for each commentator. They do kind of the same thing, but just in a different way. So first off, we have, and you can see you can label them too, which is really great. So down here, I just label it all. So if our commentators kind of get confused about what the buttons do, they can look and see, oh, it's all. So I want to talk to everyone. So I want to talk to channel 1, 2, and 3, all at the same time. Down here, producer 1-producer. 1-producer is between commentator 1 and the producer. So channel 1. Channel 2 and channel 1. So channel 2, commentator 1, and producer, channel 1. And then over here on the second blue button, the smart pad over here, this button controls the back channel for commentator 2 and the producers. And so when I press and hold it down, you can see it creates a back channel between channel 1 and channel 3, which is commentator 2. And the reason why I have it set up like that is I want some flexibility during the broadcast when both commentators are live. If for some reason one of the commentators needs to hop off the broadcast and talk to us directly to tell us to get a shot or switch to something or queue up a replay or pull up a graphic, they can do that without making it live on the broadcast and without pulling the other commentator off the broadcast to bring them into this group. So press this, commentator 1 gets on the headset with us and talks to us, and commentator 2 is live during the game. And this is the back channel going on live. This is what's making it onto the broadcast. And we always have the mix minus on this, so that pulls us off automatically whenever we're talking. Same thing with this one. If commentator one's calling a great replay or a great play with some of the talent on the court or the field or whatever it is, commentator two needs to ask us a question, doesn't want to interrupt commentator one, they can press their button, hop into a back channel really quick and talk to us. We can answer that real simple. So that's really the use case here. I'm going to go through and set up the buttons now. You go in, tap your button that you want to program, it pulls to the button interface. We're going to start with an empty one. I'm going to go through the settings, and then I'll show you how I have it set up on mine. So we'll pick an empty one. When you're setting up the smart pads, you want to make sure that you want to push mixer. So we're going to do mixer. And then you have two options at the top. You have latching and momentary. Latching is when you press it once and let go and it stays on. You press it again to turn it off. That's what latching is. Momentary is when you press and hold. Second you let go, it turns it off. I like the press and hold because it's a little safer that way. When we're dealing with live broadcasts, sometimes someone can hit the button and might not know they've hit it, and they could be in a back channel or they could be live. So just to be safe, when we're dealing with audio on a live broadcast, we want to make sure that there's no confusion about what's going on. If you've got your finger on the button, you're in a back channel. Pull it off, you're live. So that's the difference between latching and momentary and why we're using momentary. Now you want to slide over to back channel, select back channel, and then you can see that channel 1 is already selected, and that's because channel 1 has to be associated with all back channels. And then from there, you can go in and select all your back channels and then click the green check and you're ready to go. So let me show you what I have set up for all. Come into edit. I have a momentary back channel with channels 1, 2, and 3. And those two buttons are the same. You want to make it a cool color, you can go over to the color, click in there, you have your colors to choose from. You want to give it a name, you can name it. It's pretty cool the way they built this out. I love this feature so much. This is such a game changer in the broadcast world. So next is commentator 1 with producer and commentator 2 with producer. And these two, but set up slightly different because of the channel selection. So go in, I'm going to show you this. We have a momentary back channel with 1 and 2. Super simple. And for this one, we have a momentary back channel with 1 and 3. And that's really about it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and we colored it so our commentators are not confused. This is their private channel with the producer, and then this is the group channel, and this is split in half for each commentator. We can add a bunch more in here if we want. If we had more people involved with all the different channels, it's great. It's really cool. The other thing that I want to make sure to set up here is the routing. The audio routing is super important. So I want to go through this real quick because I mentioned earlier I have a studio monitor that we're sending the audio from channel 1 out of and into, and that's with us at the table. We can hear that. It's a long cable that's pulled down to the table, and we get the audio from the Rodecaster that way. It's unfortunate, but there is an Ethernet port here, and hopefully we'll be able to do some Dante stuff in the future with the Rodecaster Pro 2, maybe with some firmware updates. As of right now, I think this is just for firmware updates, but who knows? They got that Ethernet port there. It's great. The software updates that they've been doing, it's been awesome. Let me go in and show you how to set up the monitor. And so one thing that I don't have set up right now is how is this making it to the stream, right? How is this getting onto the broadcast? And right out of here, these two stereo outs, this is going into, we have a commentator camera with an XLR input, and we pull out 1/4 inch XLR input, and this contains our mix for both commentators 1 and 2 and our mix minus. So this mic is not on the stereo out. And so that's what would go here. This is where you'd put, or you can plug in your computer and send it over through your computer. Personally, I like to keep it as simple as possible. The less devices, the less connections, less points of failure, and you have a smoother production that way. So what I'm doing is I'm just plugging it in straight into the camera, pulling the camera into our broadcast with its audio and using that audio as the production broadcast audio. So in order to be able to utilize these ports, I'm going to show you the setting here, because this, you might set it up and being like, why isn't it working? Let's go back real quick. So you got to go to settings and go to outputs, and you want to go to monitor. There's 3 options here. You want to make sure that fixed output level is selected. Usually with the factory settings, it's the first one. The auto mute monitor output, you want to make sure that that one is selected. And then you can get some nice clean audio out of this. Okay, we'll go back. Okay, so now the mix minus, we want to go back into our settings. We want to click output. We want to go to routing, and we're going to click the speaker here. The speaker here represents the stereo out. So we'll click the speaker, and right now I've turned off all the channels except for 2 and 3, because I want 2 and 3 to make it on the broadcast. If I turn on 1, now this channel, check, 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 is on the broadcast. And we don't want that. We don't want the producer talking to the audience. So we're going to turn that off, and only channel 2 and 3 make it onto the broadcast. So this is the mix minus setup, and it's pretty simple to do. So really cool use case scenario here. I love what Rode has done. And again, this is a use case very specific for broadcasting with sports, where you have your producer and your production team with your switcher and director away from your commentators. And in our situation, they're on the floor at a table about 150 feet away from where this mic would be. And we have a studio monitor to be able to hear them and then also communicate to them with this mic. Really cool device. Like I mentioned earlier, I want to see this Ethernet port be able to do some Dante in the future. Maybe that's coming. Maybe it's in the works. Overall, I give this like a score of 95 out of 100. That 5 being the Ethernet port, and channel 1 has to be associated with all back channels. If we could change that to make any channel associated with any back channel we wanted to, that would be awesome. Because ideally, I would love to be able to program a couple more pads where if we had a third commentator, commentator 1 and 3 can talk just to each other without the producers and without commentator 2. And also 1 and 2 can talk without 3, and 2 and 3 can talk without 1 or the producers. Really great feature. And maybe that's possible with this. I know that there is something called trash talk. I definitely don't want to incorporate that in on a broadcast. But right now, I love the talkback channel features to this. It's really small. It's great. Easy to use for our commentators, so they don't have to get super involved with this. They just set their headphone level, audio level, and press the buttons. Easy.